I made these pickleball rulebook cliff notes a while back. I found this last week and put a voice with it, so hopefully someone else can find some use to it. My goal is to have it transcribed well enough where you can just find the rule you're looking for and click on it. These were taken straight from USA Pickleball Association website. They have a free downloadable version, which I will add in the description. Rule changes for 2024. Correcting server, receiver, and player position errors. Faults for incorrect server, receiver, and player position errors are removed. Referees will now correct player errors before calling the score to simplify gameplay and reduce stoppages. Draping net. Replays are now automatically called whenever a ball hits a draped net during play, regardless of whether it visibly affected the ball's path. This change eliminates the need for referee judgment on this matter. Catch or carry ball on the paddle. Any catching or carrying of the ball on the paddle is now explicitly a fault, removing the need to determine intent, thus clarifying and simplifying enforcement. Conceding a rally. Players or teams can now choose to concede a rally if they determine they would have been unable to return the ball following a referee's or line judge's decision that benefits them by overruling a previous out call. Medical timeouts. Players may now use their available standard timeouts after a 15-minute medical timeout has expired, offering more recovery time before potentially retiring from a match. A medical timeout, once requested, must be charged to the player, even if rescinded, ensuring careful consideration before requesting. Paddle specifications. Updates to paddle specifications address new technologies and features, with clarifications on permissible modifications to certified paddles. This ensures that equipment advancements do not disrupt the fairness of the game. Mini singles. Mini singles is officially recognized, with specific rules for this format now clearly outlined in the rulebook, ensuring consistency and clarity for participants. Section 1. The game. Game overview. Pickleball. Defined as a paddle sport played with a perforated ball on a court measuring 20 feet by 44 feet, with a tennis-style net. The court features distinct areas such as right, even and left, odd service courts, and non-volley zones. Gameplay mechanics. Serving. The ball is served diagonally across the net to the opponent's receiving court using an approved motion. Rally. Players hit the ball back and forth over the net until one fails to return the ball according to the rules. Scoring. Scoring system. Points are scored only by the serving side, either by winning the rally or through faults committed by the opponents. Service continuation. The server continues serving, alternating between the right and left service courts until the serving side either loses the rally or commits a fault. Game victory. A typical game is won by the first side to score 11 points with at least a 2-point lead. Modes of play. Singles and doubles. Pickleball can be played with one player on each side singles or two players on each side doubles. Player conduct. Fair play emphasizes cooperation, courtesy, and a strong sense of fair play, acknowledging the equal importance of every point in a match. Responsibility and calls. Players are responsible for making calls fairly and promptly, with doubles partners sharing the responsibility equally. Problem resolution. Players are encouraged to cooperate in situations not explicitly covered by the rulebook, with solutions like replays or consulting a referee. Unique rules. 2 bounce rule after the serve. Each side must perform 1 ground stroke before volleying the ball. Non-volley zone NVZ extends 7 feet from the net on each side, where players are not allowed to volley the ball without it first bouncing. Adaptations for wheelchair players. Wheelchair users are permitted 2 bounces before returning the ball, with the second bounce allowed anywhere on or around the playing surface. Section 2. Court and equipment. Court specifications. Court dimensions. The standard pickleball court measures 20 feet wide by 44 feet long, suitable for both singles and doubles play. Measurement standards. Measurements are taken to the outside of all lines, which should be 2 inches wide, uniform in color, and contrast with the playing surface. Recommended playing areas. Minimum playing area is 30 feet by 60 feet, with a surrounding margin of 10 feet. Dimensions for different purposes include: new construction, 34 feet by 64 feet. Tournament play, 34 feet by 64 feet. Wheelchair play, 44 feet by 74 feet. Stadium court, 50 feet by 80 feet. Lines and areas, baselines and sidelines define the boundaries of the court. Non-volley zone NVZ, a 7-foot zone on either side of the net where volleys are prohibited. Service courts, divided by the center line, Each side of the court has a right, even in a left odd service area. Center line extends from the NVZ to the baseline, dividing the service courts. Net specifications. Material and construction. The net is made of mesh fabric that prevents the ball from passing through. Net posts positioned 22 feet apart with a maximum diameter of 3 inches. Net size and height. Net length is at least 21 feet 9 inches, with a standard height of 36 inches at the sidelines and 34 inches at the center. It includes a 2-inch white tape binding at the top. All specifications. Design balls have 26 to 40 circular holes designed to conform to specific flight characteristics. Approval tournament balls are selected by the director and must be on the approved list. Construction, made from durable material with a smooth surface and uniform color. Paddle specifications. Material paddles are made from safe, non-compressible materials approved by USA Pickleball. Surface, free from alterations that could affect the ball's spin with a non-reflective surface. Size and weight. The total length and width must not exceed 24 inches, no restrictions on thickness or weight. Modifications. Allowable modifications include tape, weights, and grip changes within specified limits. Equipment approval and authorization. Players must use paddles approved by USA Pickleball, listed as pass on the official list. Violations. Using unapproved paddles can lead to penalties ranging from being required to switch paddles to forfeiting matches. Apparel. Regulations. Apparel must be safe and not distract players by resembling the ball color. Footwear should not damage the court surface. Enforcement. The tournament director can enforce apparel changes, with violations potentially leading to match forfeits. Section 3. Definitions. Ball in play refers to the duration of a rally from the serve until the ball is declared dead. Carry describes a hit where the ball does not bounce off the paddle but instead is carried along on the paddle's face. Coaching involves any form of communication, including verbal, nonverbal, and electronic, from anyone other than the player's partner that aims to provide strategic advantages. Court. The designated play area inside the outer dimensions of the baselines and sidelines. Cross court refers to the court diagonally opposite from where the ball was last struck. Dead ball. A ball that is no longer in play. Distraction. Actions by a player that are unusual for the game and may interfere with the opponent's concentration or ability to hit the ball. Double bounce occurs when the ball bounces twice on one side before being returned. Double hit involves the ball being hit twice before it is returned over the net. Ejection, the removal of a player from a tournament due to a severe behavior violation. Expulsion. A severe penalty where a player is banned from current and future tournament play and must leave the venue immediately. Fault. A rules violation that results in a dead ball or the end of the rally. First server. In doubles, the player who serves from the right even service court after a side out. Forfeit. The result of a severe behavior violation or multiple technical warnings, fouls, leading to the loss of a game or match. Round stroke. Striking the ball after it has bounced on the court. Hinder. Any transient disruption not caused by a player that adversely impacts play. Imaginary extension. A conceptual extension of a line beyond its physical endpoints used for positioning and ruling purposes. A left odd court. The service area on the left side of the court when facing the net. Line call. A declaration made when a ball lands outside the required court space, typically called out as out. Live ball. The period when the ball is in play, starting when the score is called. Momentum. Describes the continuation of movement by a player after hitting the ball, particularly in volleying. Non-volley zone NVZ, also known as the kitchen. A specific area close to the net where the ball must bounce before it can be volleyed. Officiating team. Includes all personnel involved in enforcing rules and managing gameplay, such as referees and line judges. Paddle grip adjustments. Modifications to the paddle's grip that do not mechanically alter the paddle. Permanent object. Objects near or overhanging the court that can interfere with play. Plane of the net. Imaginary vertical planes extending beyond the net. Playing surface. includes the court and any surrounding areas designated for play. Profanity. Inappropriate language or gestures that are considered rude or offensive. Rally. Continuous play that occurs after the serve and continues until a fault is called. A receiver. The player positioned to return the serve. Replay. A rally that is restarted without awarding points or changing servers due to a disruption or error. A retirement. When a player or team chooses to stop playing, forfeiting the match to the opponent. Right even court. The service area on the right side of the court when facing the net. Second serve. The condition in doubles when the first server has lost the serve and the partner serves. Server. The player who initiates a rally by serving the ball. Service court. The area on either side of the center line that includes parts of the court where the serve must land. Side out. Occurs when the serving team loses the serve and the opposing team gains the right to serve. Technical foul. A penalty issued for behavioral violations resulting in a point deduction or addition depending on the situation. Volley. Striking the ball out of the air before it has bounced. Wheelchair player. A player who participates in the game using a wheelchair regardless of disability status. Withdrawal. When a player or team opts out of further play in a tournament. The serve, service sequence, and scoring rules. Serving. The score must be fully announced before the serve is initiated. Serve placement. Serves must be delivered diagonally to the appropriate service court. Serves can touch the net as long as they land in the correct court and may touch any line except the non-volley zone lines. Serve impact. If the serve touches the receiver or their partner after crossing the net, it scores a point for the server. Server stance. The server must keep 1 foot behind the baseline without touching it or the court inside the baseline. The foot must also not touch outside the imaginary extensions of the sideline or center line. Specific provisions are in place for wheelchair players regarding wheel position. Serve types. Volley serve. The server must strike the ball in an upward arc with the paddle head not higher than the wrist at the moment of contact, and the ball must be struck below the waist. Drop serve. The ball is released from the hand or paddle without any direction or spin and must bounce before being served. There are no restrictions on the number of bounces or the location of the bounce on the playing surface. Service errors and replays. Officials may call for replays if unsure about a serve's legality or declare faults if certain serve requirements are not met. In non-officiated play, players can call for replays under specific conditions but cannot declare faults related to the serve motion. Player positions. Server and receiver positions determined by the score and game context, with players alternating serve sides from right even to left odd after each point scored by the server. Singles and doubles serve. In singles, serves alternate based on the server's score. In doubles, both partners serve in sequence before the serve shifts to the opposing team, and the side of service also depends on the team's cumulative score. Readiness and score calling. Players must signal if not ready before the score call. Once play has commenced, such signals are ignored unless there is a hinder. The score is called according to the positions of the server and receiver, and in doubles, the server number is also announced. Scoring. Points can only be scored by the serving side, except where technical fouls against the opposing side may award points directly. A game is won by the first side to reach the preset score limit, typically requiring a 2-point advantage. Faults. Service faults include violations such as the serve ball landing in the non-volley zone, hitting permanent objects before landing, or infractions during the serve motion. Receiver faults are declared if the receiving team touches the ball before it bounces or commits certain specified actions during the serve. Service and end selection rules. Selection of end, serve, receive, or defer. A fair method, e.g., flipping a coin, is used to determine which player or team makes the first choice of either the end, serve, receive, or defer the choice. If the winner selects to serve or receive, the loser chooses the starting end. Conversely, if the winner chooses the starting end, the loser decides whether to serve or receive. Once a decision is made, it cannot be changed. In doubles, teams may change the starting server between games, and this change should be communicated to the referee or, in non-officiated matches, to the opponents. Change of ends. Teams switch ends in the initial service upon the completion of each game. A 2-minute interval is permitted between games, though teams can agree to resume play earlier. Specific rules for switching ends during a game. In a best-of-3 match games to 11 points, teams switch ends when the first team reaches 6 points in the third game. The serve does not change. If the first game was forfeited, there is no switch during the third game. In a game to 15 points, teams switch ends when the first team reaches 8 points. In a game to 21 points, the switch occurs when the first team reaches 11 points. A 1-minute timeout is allowed for switching ends during a game. If a technical foul resulting in the loss of a point occurs right before switching ends, it does not affect the completion of the end change. In a 3 out of 5 match to 11 points, teams switch ends in the 5th game when the first team scores 6 points. If teams fail to switch ends according to the rules, the switch will be executed as soon as the oversight is realized, without it being considered a fault by either team, and the score remains unaffected. Line call rules. General line call rules. A served ball that successfully lands in the correct service court or on any service court line after clearing the non-volley zone NVZ and its lines is considered in. Any ball in play that lands within the court boundaries or touches any court line is in. A ball that completely lands outside of the court boundaries is out. A served ball that lands in the opponent's NVZ, including the NVZ lines, is out. Code of ethics for line calling. Line calling in pickleball is governed by a code of ethics that emphasizes accuracy and fairness, particularly when line calling duties fall to the players rather than referees or line judges. Players are responsible for making line calls on their side of the court, with the exception of certain calls like short serves, service foot faults, and all NVZ faults, which are handled by referees in officiated matches. Any initial line call made by a player stands unless a clear contrary call is made by an opponent or a referee. If there's uncertainty, the player's call stands. Only the center line is called by players in matches with line judges. Ethical guidelines in dispute resolution. The opponent always gets the benefit of the doubt. Any ball that cannot definitively be called out must be considered in. Players should not call a ball out unless they clearly see space between the line and where the ball lands. All-out calls must be made before the ball is played by the opponent or becomes dead. In doubles, if there is disagreement between partners, one calls out, the other calls in, the call defaults to in. Players must promptly signal out calls both verbally and/or with a hand signal. Yelling words like out, no, or bounce it during play is considered player communication and not an official line call. Any out call made after the ball bounces constitutes a line call, halting play. If a referee overrules this type of out call upon appeal, it results in a fault against the team that made the incorrect call. Players may overrule their partners, their own, and officiating teams or an opponent's in call to their own disadvantage after a rally concludes. Spectator involvement. Spectators should not be consulted for any line call decisions, appealing and handling disputes. If there's uncertainty about a call, players may appeal to the referee. If the referee cannot make a clear call, the outcome of the opponent's initial ruling stands. When players ask for an opponent's opinion on a line call and accept their decision, they forfeit the right to make any subsequent in or out calls for that rally. Dead ball rules. General rule for dead balls. Any action that halts play results in a dead ball. This includes but is not limited to faults, hinders, or any interruptions deemed by the referee or players that stop the rally. Faults resulting in dead balls. When a fault occurs, either called by a referee or committed by a player, play is stopped and the ball is declared dead. Faults can be anything from service errors, boundary errors, non-volley zone infractions, or procedural mistakes during the game. Hinders resulting in dead balls. A hinder called by either a referee or a player also results in a dead ball. The referee has the authority to determine if a hinder called by a player is valid. If a hinder is deemed valid by the referee, or in cases of non-officiated play where a hinder is acknowledged, the rally is replayed. Permanent object interference. If a ball in play hits a permanent object after it has already bounced on the opponent's court, the rally ends, and the player who last hit the ball wins the point. Permanent objects might include fixtures around or above the court, such as lights, posts, or surrounding structures that are not part of the designated playing area. Enforcement of faults. Faults resulting in dead balls, except for non-volley zone violations, are typically committed when the ball is live and are enforced immediately upon identification. The penalty for a fault must be enforced before the commencement of the next serve. This includes faults like distractions from players, double bounces, or other irregularities during play. Non-volley zone rules. General rules for the non-volley zone NVZ. Volleying from the NVZ, all volleys must be initiated outside of the NVZ. This means players cannot stand in or touch the NVZ or its lines while volleying the ball directly out of the air. Specific rules for players using wheelchairs. Players using wheelchairs are allowed to have their front smaller wheels touch the NVZ during a volley, accommodating their unique mobility needs. Faults associated with the NVZ. During volleying, it is a fault if, during the act of volleying, which includes the swing, follow-through, and momentum, the player or anything they are in contact with touches the NVZ. This also applies if the player's paddle touches the NVZ during the volley motion before or after hitting the ball. Momentum-related faults. If a player's momentum during a volley causes them or anything they are in contact with, including a partner, to touch the NVZ, it is considered a fault. This rule is enforced even if the ball becomes dead before the player contacts the NVZ. Re-engaging in play after touching the NVZ. If a player touches the NVZ for any reason, they must ensure both feet or both rear wheels, in the case of wheelchair users, make contact with the playing surface completely outside the NVZ before they can legally volley the ball again. Permissible actions in the NVZ. General movement. Players may enter the NVZ at any time except when volleying the ball. Post-bounce plays. Players are allowed to step into or remain in the NVZ to return balls that have bounced. There is no requirement to exit the NVZ immediately after hitting a bounced ball. Partner positioning. There is no violation if a player returns the ball while their partner is standing in the NVZ, as long as the partner is not involved in the actual act of volleying. Timeout rules. Standard timeouts. Players or teams are entitled to 2 timeouts in 11 or 15-point games and 3 timeouts in 21-point games. Each timeout lasts up to 1 minute, but play can resume early if all players are ready. Timeouts must be called before the next serve. There is no penalty for calling a timeout when none remain. The referee will announce when 15 seconds remain in the timeout, call time in, and then the score when play resumes. Medical timeouts. Players requiring medical attention during a match can request a medical timeout. The referee will summon medical personnel to assess the situation and determine if a valid medical condition exists. Players are granted no more than 15 minutes for medical attention, and the time for any off-court treatment is not counted against these 15 minutes. If a player is unable to resume after the medical timeout, the match is declared a retirement, although regular timeouts can still be used to extend the break if needed. If no valid medical condition is identified, the team is charged a standard timeout and receives a technical warning, or a technical foul if no standard timeouts remain. Continuous play and equipment timeouts. Play should be continuous, though players can quickly hydrate or towel off between rallies without significantly delaying the game. If necessary for fair and safe play, the referee may grant an equipment timeout for adjustments or replacements. Time between games and matches. Standard time between games is 2 minutes, and between matches is 10 minutes. Players can request to use their upcoming game's timeouts during the interval between games. If play resumes early, these timeouts can be retained for use during the upcoming game. In championship scenarios with a tiebreaker, 10 minutes are allowed between the final match and the tiebreaker. Suspended games. If a game is suspended due to extenuating circumstances, it will resume with the same server score and remaining timeouts as when play was halted. Additional guidelines. No medical or regular timeouts may be taken before the match begins. The referee may call timeouts to address safety issues such as potential medical emergencies without charging these against the player. Issues like active bleeding or foreign substances on the court are addressed during referee-called timeouts and are prioritized for immediate resolution. These timeout rules ensure that games are played smoothly while accommodating necessary breaks for medical issues, equipment malfunctions, and standard rest periods between games and matches. Other rules. Double hits. Balls can be hit twice, but only during a continuous, single-direction stroke by one player. Faults occur if the stroke is not continuous, changes direction, or if the ball is struck by a second player. Switching hands and two-handed shots. Players may switch the paddle from one hand to the other at any time. Two-handed shots are permitted. Missed shots. Missing the ball during an attempt does not stop play. The ball remains in play until it bounces twice or another fault occurs. All condition. Play continues until the end of the rally if there's suspicion that the ball is broken, cracked, degraded, or soft. In officiated matches, players can request a ball check before the next serve. A replay may be called if the ball condition affected the rally outcome. In non-officiated matches, players can agree to replace the ball, however, prior rallies stand unless unanimously deemed affected by the ball's condition. Injury during rally. If a player is injured during a rally, play continues until the rally concludes unless a serious immediate health risk is evident. Equipment problems. Equipment problems. Play does not stop for equipment issues like a broken paddle or lost item unless it directly results in a fault. Items on the court. Items falling from a player onto their side of the court do not stop play unless they land in the NVZ during a volley. Plane of the net. Crossing the plane of the net before striking the ball is a fault. After striking the ball, players or their equipment can cross the plane as long as they don't touch the net, opponent's court, or the opponent. Distractions. Players must not intentionally distract opponents. Such actions can lead to faults if deemed significant by the referee. Net posts and net. Net posts are considered out of bounds. Contact with the net post during play is a fault. Balls hitting the net post result in a dead ball, and the rally is lost by the team that hit it. Balls hitting the net and landing inbounds remain in play unless they pass between the net and the net post, which is a fault. Net system specifics. Contact with parts of the net system like the horizontal bar or center base during play can lead to replays or faults, depending on the situation and whether it's during a serve. Shots around the net post. Balls can be returned around the net post without going over the net, with no height restrictions. Paddle rules. Players must maintain possession of their paddle when making contact with the ball. Losing grip during a stroke results in a fault. A player is allowed only one paddle during a rally. Using or carrying more than one is a fault. Electronic equipment. The use of headphones or earbuds during play is prohibited unless they are medically prescribed hearing aids. Sanctioned tournament policies. Event categories. Gender-specific events. Men's and women's categories include both singles and doubles. Mixed doubles. Teams must consist of one male and one female player. Wheelchair events offered in singles and doubles with players in wheelchairs able to participate in standard men's, women's, or mixed doubles categories with stand-up partners or other wheelchair users. Tournament scoring options. Standard scoring. The recommended option is best 2 of 3 games to 11 points, win by 2 points. Alternatives include best 3 of 5 games to 11 points, 1 game to 15 points, or 1 game to 21 points. Round-robin brackets with 6 or more teams might use 1 game to 11 points, win by 2 points. Tournament formats. Single elimination with consolation. Losers from all rounds enter a consolation bracket for a chance at 3rd place. Single elimination without consolation, used for pro and senior pro brackets where only final standings matter. Double elimination, participants get a second chance via a consolation bracket. The winner of the consolation bracket can challenge the winner of the winner's bracket. Round robin, each team plays every other team with various tie-breaking methods. Pool play divides participants into pools for round-robin play, followed by single or double elimination playoffs. Draws and seeding. A committee sets up fair draws based on player rankings and seedings. Match scheduling and timeouts. Players are responsible for keeping track of match schedules. Regular and medical timeouts are regulated with specific rules regarding their timing and use. Retirements and withdrawals. Details the protocol for players needing to retire due to injury or other reasons, including how scores are reported and the continuation of play in other matches. Forfeits, ejections, expulsions. Scoring guidelines for matches affected by forfeits, ejections, or expulsions ensure fairness and clarity in record keeping. Specific regulations for mini-singles. Mini-singles matches follow standard singles rules but include additional court line designations to clarify which side of the court is in play. Tournament management and officiating. Tournament director responsibilities. The tournament director oversees the tournament, appoints officials, and has the final decision on officiating disputes. Ensures all team starting servers are visibly identified with non-compliance resulting in match forfeit. Ensures adequate tournament support such as first aid and volunteers. Has authority to expel players for misconduct. Tournament briefing. The tournament director briefs players and referees about unique conditions or hazards associated with the courts. This briefing may include variations in court dimensions, obstructions, or other local conditions. Referee duties. Referees are responsible for making procedural and judgment calls during matches. They handle all calls directly related to gameplay, such as non-volley zone infractions, service foot faults, and line calls. Before each match, referees check the court conditions, equipment, and meet with players to discuss match rules and any specific conditions or modifications. During the match, referees maintain the flow of the game, enforce timeout procedures, and manage player conduct, including issuing warnings or calling faults based on behavior. Player responsibilities in line and fault calls. In non-officiated play, players are expected to self-call faults and manage line calls on their end of the court. In officiated play, players still maintain some responsibilities for line calls unless line judges are present. Line judges. Line judges are used in medal matches to assist with line and fault calls, with their assignments and roles clearly defined by the tournament management. Appeals and disputes. Players can appeal officiating decisions to the referee, who has the authority to consult with line judges or other officials to resolve the appeal. The outcome of an appeal could be a point awarded, a service loss, or a replay of the rally. Technical warnings and fouls. The referee can issue technical warnings or fouls for unsportsmanlike behavior or other infractions impacting the offending player or team's score or continuing ability to compete in the tournament. Game and match forfeits. Specific conditions under which a game or match forfeit occurs are outlined, including the timing of matches and player readiness. Removal of officials. Both referees and line judges can be removed for cause, with the final decision resting with the tournament director. Non-officiated play. In non-officiated matches, players can request intervention from a referee or tournament director if they believe there are unresolved disputes or rule violations. Ejections and expulsions. The tournament director has the authority to eject or expel players from the tournament for severe misconduct or actions that negatively impact the tournament's integrity or other participants' safety. Thanks for watching. Hope you got some use out of it.